Happy Wine Wednesday, everyone. Thank you, Holly, for joining me. Ray, we got to get you a glass, even if it's water, a Seahorse glass, just so you can cheers. Anyhow,
I changed.
there we go.
Tonight I've got
There we
Crystal
go.
Light.
Crystal Light works. That works. I literally
So
have,
it's
go ahead.
strawberry, banana, and orange.
There you go,
Yeah,
right? Flavorful
I like
even.
that stuff.
And I would say, too, guys, that like I even have a mug that says coffee counts. I made it for Matt back in the day, but it is for sale. Just saying. Anyways, first off, just to start the night, I have Holly and Ray with me because they are faithful. They're here every week, and Kelly wasn't here last week. I want to do a big apology, guys. I also want to say before I start my apology that I can't believe the outpouring of support that I got, right? So, just to make a long story short, I had trouble at work, I had trouble at home. I literally didn't know what day it was, not because I was in a wonderful wine stupor, but because I was so frustrated with life, right? Holly messaged me and said, "Where are you at, Kelly?" And I was like, "Oh my God, my eyes were bright red. I got poofy. I can't, there's no way." She was like, "I'm not going to go live without you," which is understandable. And then I even had Zen Ginger reach out. I had multiple people, I won't name your names, but I had multiple people reach out and say, "Are you okay? Where are you? What's going on? Where's Wine Wednesday?" So, number one, I thank you all for your support. Number two, I thank you for the support for the channel because that's huge. We're not a huge channel. Um, what's his name? I can't think of the name, but someone comes in every week and says, "What's the stats?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we don't have great stats, right? It's a community. We've got people that come every week. When newcomers come, we help them. When someone with a problem comes, we help them. When someone needs help, they go through our old videos. And that's what we're here for. We're not here to like make money or do anything crazy, but just seeing how many people cared that we weren't live made me feel awful, but also made me feel very good about the fact that we're doing this still, even though it is a smaller channel. And also, tell your friends. Like, we do show up usually. See, Cora works. That's who it is. FFL stats, right? Again, as I was saying, we don't have great stats, but who cares? I'm not here for that. I'm here for you guys. I'm here for me too, because I still learn every week. I learn something from Ray or Holly or whatever. So I'm just here to provide that community atmosphere. I would love someday to grow the channel, but weeks like last week, I couldn't get here, you guys. So on to the apology because I'm rambling. The apology is I'm just sorry. I'm just sorry. I will never let that happen again. Again, it was just a combination of things. And then when I didn't get here, didn't even realize I was late. Holly let me know, and then I couldn't get into my account. I it was like a whirlwind of poo, right? So we're going to move past it. I'm just telling you, I will never let that happen again. I'll have something in place if I can't be here for emergencies. Holly can get online, but I totally understand why she couldn't spur the moment last week. And so we won't let that happen again. We'll be here every week for you guys. And if you do want our FFL stats to grow, share the channel. Tell people to come. We're going to have some cool guests coming up. I've reached out. You guys, if I've reached out to you, and we're going to have some cool guests coming up and have some actual topics and some focus in on some subjects coming soon. I do want to get more serious about this. It's just life, guys. Life sucks, right? So now my voice is going. Just sorry, I'm dad. Cora works. I know you do nothing but support us. I'm not giving you crap either. I'm just saying, like, it was really cool to see how many people reached out to say, "Where's Wine Wednesday? I had a question," or whatever, or just, "Where are you?" Making sure that I was okay and that the channel was okay. I'll never let the channel die, guys, even if we only have 2 people watching. Even if that happens and I get too old to cover this, I'll find somebody to replace me because I think it matters. And I think that a lot of people know that they can come when they need something. I wish they came every week, of course, but they know they can come when they need something. Only other thing, rambling for the beginning, is that tonight I'm wearing my Reef Dude shirt. It says, what does it say? It says, you said, I know it's backwards. You
I
said
can't
I'd
read it.
never buy you flowers. And it's a bunch of flower nems, right? Really cute shirt, older. I don't even know if it's still available. But I just like to point that stuff out because even though the website's not done, right? If you want to support this channel, we have shirts available too. And Reef Dudes is definitely a channel that I would suggest you support and watch. And they have a complete website with shirts available too. So if you want to get the word out and grow our channel, if you're part of this community and you care, buy a shirt, not to, make me rich off of $12 or whatever, but to wear it. And people say, I can't tell you how many times I've worn a shirt out and then someone says, wait, what's a Seahorse Whisperer? Or what is this? What is that? That's not flowers, And then it gets the conversation going. Hey, Fish Fam Link. And of course, I'm talking about Reef Dudes. I'm talking about this channel. Of course, we have people like places like Fish Fam Link who support even the smaller channels like us, which we very much appreciate. And you should check out the other channels that they support because that's what community does, right? All right, I am done rambling. I have Ray and Holly with me. Bonnie, I see you say, we'll get to your question in a minute. Holly, did you have anything for this week before I jump to questions and go into that?
I don't really. We're in a heat wave right now. I attended my cousin's wedding live from Las Vegas. She streamed it, which is nice. So I did that earlier this afternoon. So I'm wearing my Seahorse dress. I don't know if you can see it because it's hard with the thing, but see, I got seahorses on it.
Too cute.
Yeah, so that and the little seahorse necklace. So that was for my cousin's wedding. I sent pictures to her of Scott and I watching. She wanted people to send pictures of them watching her live stream. So I did that. So that was kind of fun. And it's super hot here. I live at a 3,000 foot elevation. I'm in Northern California. So here at my house, it reached 90 degrees, which is the hottest I've ever seen it here. But down in the valley, a half an hour down the hill from me, they're at like 105, 106 today. So my chillers have been running. It's going to be a hot summer.
And guys, don't forget, we'll be doing Wine Wednesday live from Holly's house. I have to look at the calendar to tell you the exact date.
And Kelly's going to see how hot it gets here.
Yes, I already have my tickets. This is for sure. I will be there, and we will be doing Wine Wednesday on the 10th of July from Holly's house. So make sure you mark that on your calendar. Be with us because it's going to be a lot of fun. And I will see the temperatures. Yes.
On top of that, and I can tell Bonnie I make RODI water.
So let's put up the question real quick. So what was the question, Holly?
So she's asking, she says it takes 16 minutes to make a gallon of RODI water. And that's about right. Mine in the summertime, it takes an hour and 8 minutes for me to fill a 5-gallon bucket. And then in the wintertime, it takes longer for some reason. It takes an hour and 16 minutes for me to make a 5-gallon bucket. And throughout the year, it kind of varies. So I kind of watch it, but generally I have to set a timer so I don't overflow it all over my laundry room. But I make it in buckets and I set a kitchen timer for an hour and 8 minutes, an hour and 10 minutes. Sometimes it's not quite done, so I have to add 2 more minutes or whatever to get there. But it's about right, sounds like to me, from what I've experienced.
And Ray, you said what? It's due to what?
cold water, the molecules are closer together, so it takes longer to get through the system, especially
That makes
the
sense.
RO. Pardon me. But when as the water warms up, the molecules spread out further, and it'll go through the filters easier that way.
Well, and Cora Work said, Bonnie, there should be a gallon per hour rating on the RO membrane. That's usually the slowest part of the filter. 15 minutes is not that bad. So, and not, that's why you have a reservoir. And
Reservoir.
she, yeah, however you say it. And Bonnie said she doesn't have one,
I don't either.
but it's okay. So
I have a hose that goes in a bucket. Little
right.
tiny.
And
I run it into a 55-gallon olive barrel, and it's got a float switch on it, so when it fills up, it shuts down.
It shuts off. That's nice.
So you can make your own reservoir, however you want to pronounce it, but you can make your own for sure. And Bonnie did say, I hear you can install a booster pump to help make it faster and more efficient. Thoughts on that, guys?
You only do it if your pressure's below the minimum.
Right. So I went through the same experience as you, Bonnie, when I first started doing RODI through the filtration system. My water's really bad, so I thought that played a part. And I also was like, oh my God, this is trickling in. Like this is gonna, I have to do this way in advance in order to have the water for my water changes, right? And so I started doing that. I started storing water, learning how to store water, etc., building something like Ray had. But I don't think what you're talking about is like that crazy, because I had the exact same experience thinking, why is it dripping in or barely
I thought that
running
too.
in?
When I first got mine, I'm all, why is it so slow?
But
and then I
think about
realized
it.
that's normal.
Not
A
only
lot of
is it
it's going
normal,
down the drain. When you think about it, it's they're not all the water. It's not just coming out like it comes out the faucet.
right?
You've got a hose going to the drain too, and
Yep.
part of the water is going there.
And I actually noticed that the drain water fills up faster, which is terrible, but it's
Yeah,
the
right.
truth.
You feel like you're wasting a lot of water.
Well, and there are a lot of things online that will talk about what you can do with that bad water.
Yeah,
You
I
can
should
use
stick
it for
it in a hose
plants.
to the garden or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. No, seriously, because
Save my
that
water
water
bill.
is like nutrient rich. Yeah, it's got the bad stuff, but it's got some of the good stuff that is good for plants, but we don't want it in our tanks because we don't want algae to feed off of it, right? So there are uses for that bad water. Bad water, that's a bad word, but I would
Bad
say
for the
what your
seahorses water.
But back to the booster comment. So I looked into that too. And the only concern I have, and Coral Works, if you're still out there, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I never did it. So I can't give you and this is what happened to me experience. But I can tell you, I looked into it. I wanted to do it because I wanted it to be faster for me. But I learned through my research that using that booster, as Ray said, you only want one if there's a problem with the pressure, right? If there's not, and you throw a booster on, I think maybe you're letting through stuff you don't want to let through because you're pushing it through too fast. Am I wrong, Ray?
No, that's right.
Yeah. So that's what I learned. That's why I chose not to do the booster, because it wasn't my pressure. It was just me being impatient, right? I just didn't want to wait. And if everything was working right, and of course, with God, my AirPods are messing up. Sorry. With with your TDS or with your RODI system, the real key is TDS, testing TDS at the end, right? I don't trust any of the filtration, color changes, or any of that crap. I trust my TDS meter that I make sure is calibrated, and then I make sure my TDS is what I want it to be at the end. So if that's coming out right, I don't think you need a booster. It's just a pain. I get it. The alternative, I will stick to this forever. Nobody likes when I say this because everybody wants to promote RODI systems. But I can tell you, now that I minimize the amount of tanks that I have, I use distilled water bought from the store all the time. Like I only make RODI maybe once or twice a month because it does take so long, because I'm dealing with smaller tanks where if I don't have water stored and ready, and I don't have the space for it anymore. So if I don't have that water stored and ready, then it takes forever to make it. So it's easier for me, like if my tank, so again, if you have a sump and a better tank setup, you're talking about a different situation. But for instance, in my all-in-one tank, if the water level goes too low, then the pumps start spitting bubbles, and the whole tank is bubbles. And I know that it's been proven that that doesn't like cause gas bubble disease or pouch emphysema or any of that. But I still don't like it, and it worries me, and so I don't ever let it get that way. But if I have um, used a turkey baster they didn't eat as much food that night. So I'm using my turkey baster to suck up too much food. The next morning I get up, there's bubbles everywhere. Am I going to go and wait when I got to go to work and do this whole RODI thing? Or am I going to just grab a gallon of distilled water, maybe use some Prime just for just to make myself feel better, but use that to top it off. And of course, test salinity. You can't do that all the time because you have to make sure you're replacing salt water with salt water. But you have to also account for evaporation. So anyways, I'm just telling you my method now that I'm old and I'm lazy is to have distilled water on hand in the jugs so that if I'm in a situation where I just need a cup of water or half a gallon of water, I'm not going to wait on that RODI system. Now, for anyone new or with bigger tanks or with, a different situation, the best method is to run the RODI system and then store the water. Ray, did you have any method for storing water? Like you talked about having the auto top off to
The
make it
55,
stop.
yeah, the 55-gallon olive barrel.
Yep.
That's what I kept mine in.
Did you keep circulation within that water?
Not in that barrel. No, the only circulation is once I mix salt with it.
Right. And I was hoping you'd make that point that when you're talking about completely pure, basically nothing in it water, there, all it has to do is sit, right? And you need
Yeah,
a
well,
cover.
and especially if you keep it covered, the chances of bacteria settling in it are slim.
Right. And we're not talking about, you don't want to keep it for months on end, right? But for a week, if you keep it covered, like Ray said, then it's going to be fine. It really is. Holly, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I use the 5-gallon salt buckets actually for my water.
Oh,
And the way I do it is on Saturday, I make the water for the water change on Wednesday. Takes me close to all day Saturday to make 8 buckets of water, 8 5-gallon buckets. And then it just sits in a room in my house and waits for Wednesday when I do the water changes and add salt to it. In addition to that, I make 1 or 2 buckets each day for replacing water I've siphoned out of the tanks because I do siphoning after they eat. So they're getting a mini water change every day too.
right.
So I go through a bucket to 2 buckets a day because I have 2 tanks. So
And they're big tanks. They're not small tanks like
yeah,
mine.
I have a 55 and a 75.
And
So
I'm
pretty
talking about
big,
a
but
40
not
and a
huge.
65. Right. But CoralWorks also agreed and said the same thing before we did. you can install a booster pump if your water pressure is low, but you don't want too much pressure for what the membrane is rated for. And I saw another interesting comment from Bonnie. She thinks that the temperature slows it down when it's colder. What are you guys' thoughts on
That's
that?
what Ray was saying. He says the
Okay.
molecules of water get closer together, so it takes longer for it to go through the system. As when it's warmer, the molecules spread out more and it moves faster. So that was his explanation of it, which makes sense to me. Because, yeah, like I
Yeah.
said, in the wintertime, it takes longer. It takes about 10 more minutes per gallon, or 10 more minutes per bucket, I mean, in the winter time than it does in the summer. So I have to be careful. Like, I kind of watch the temperature of outside, and I've been doing it for so many years that I pretty much know by what the weather is outside about how long
Yep.
it's going to take. You get used to it.
Well, and is there an average? Like Cora Work said, and we've all said, that it depends on the unit. Like some units work faster than others.
Mhm.
Depends on your water quality too. Like that's one thing I want to point out. Sorry guys, I'm trying to do two things at once. I'm still here. But like with my water, it's so bad that I just really there's no scientific proof of this, but I believe that it takes longer to filter it through, and I get way more waste than I do pure water when I use the RODI system, because my TDS out of the tap is like 450.
Mhm.
Holly, yours is like what, 18 or something
30,
crazy?
around
So
30 most of the time.
so mine is 400, and hers is 30. So it depends on where you live, it depends on your water quality, and then it depends on the unit. So I don't think there's really an answer for that, but she said the pressurized tank only holds 4 gallons, so I thought filling a pail might be easier than the tank. Right, but like Cora Work said, get a brute tub because you want to cover it, because you do. Dan has made the point
Mhm.
many times that leave a glass of water sitting out on the table, or leave a
Dust
piece of
from your
shrimp.
house, whatever, will get a
Yeah,
bug.
leave a piece of shrimp sitting out on the table. Do
Smoke
you
from
want to use
cooking.
that? Would you eat it or drink it after, a day or an hour or anything? Probably not, because of bacteria, because of dust, because of crap. And you wouldn't want to do that to the seahorses either. Just is the only point I was making. Um, let's see, what else?
And I don't use the brute cans because I don't have room for them in my house. I need something portable. So I have a spot where I stack my 5 gallon buckets when they're full, in a little square. But I have no way to move a brute can around my house. Or if I put it where I make the water is in my laundry room, I could not walk through the laundry room if I had a brute can sitting in there. So it kind
Right.
of
So
depends on your setup, what works for you.
for
But
sure,
whatever containers you use, yeah, I would say make sure you can cover it.
well, cover it. And what I would say is when I had 12 tanks going in my house, I absolutely had to make water, and a lot of water, and keep it stored, right? And it was before I was comfortable using distilled. So if you're new and you're like, I'm not going to go use distilled water, who knows? I get it. I was the same way. That's how I was too. I had to do my own RODI. I had to test the TDS. I had to make sure. So I had, as Ray was pointing out, big brute, like the trash cans that were brand new, never used, nothing in them. And I would clean them out myself, of course. And then I would store water in them and I would cover them. But I would make tons of water, and then I would use like a distilled water 1 gallon jug
Mhm.
to literally get the water and take it to the tank. It's more of a pain, but I'm just saying, as far as
Gotta do
carrying it,
what works. Yeah.
yeah, there's no way I could have taken that
Yeah.
trash can to every tank, but I
Right.
just would figure out a way to get the water to the tank, is all I was trying to say.
Now,
Um,
another thing I have to keep in mind, like this time of year, because see, remember I was talking about how hot it is here,
mhm.
and my house doesn't have air conditioning. So it can get real warm in my house. Like today we got to, I want to say 80 in my house. 80.
Okay.
It says it's
Might move
81
out.
right now. So if I let the water sit too long, it matches the temperature of the house. So
Right.
in summer like this, I'll change the day that I make the water to the day before I need it so that it stays colder. And there's been days that I've had to put the water outside in the early
Yep.
morning to chill it, to get it down to where it's an acceptable temperature for me to use it.
Gotcha. And big announcement, guys. I'm no longer going to see Holly because she doesn't have air conditioning. Sorry. Sorry. No, I'm just kidding. I'm
I
totally
thought she
kidding.
had it. She just doesn't like to use it.
Okay. Well,
No, I
she
don't.
gonna have to use it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
we have a system, but it's low on Freon. It could go out at any
Yep.
time.
Yep.
So
I
it
think I can
doesn't
handle a
happen
week.
most of the time.
I am a baby. One of the previous weeks I told you guys like a month ago that my central air went out. And I've told you guys repeatedly that where I live in Indiana, I don't have to worry about what Holly's talking about, not just for us, but for the seahorses, because oh my gosh, AirPods are not working tonight. But because my central air kind of handles it for me with anything in the house, right? The tanks, I don't need heaters or chillers, etc. I live in a pretty neutral climate, goes up and down, but not drastically. And so when my air went out, when my central air went out, it was devastating to me as a person, let alone my tanks. Luckily, it never got too hot when it went. Like if it had gone out in the midsummer, that's why I always say listen to people like Holly, because it's always better to have backups and methods of controlling the tank if you do have extreme temperatures. Because in my case, I would have been screwed. I was just lucky that it happened when it wasn't
I'll
too
tell you,
drastic.
it's pretty devastating to replace an HVAC. We found out to replace ours. It's like a minimum of about $12,000. That's why we don't have it.
Right.
So we're gonna go another route. But
Yep. I get it.
we have a
And
swamp cooler. Maybe we'll have it in by the time you come. I don't know yet, but we have one
no
sitting
worries.
outside that my husband plans on installing. We'll just see when he gets around to it.
I'm coming either way. It doesn't matter. I think I fixed my AirPod issues. Guys, I'm used to the regular ones. Now I have pros. I think I had them backwards. The pros are like specific to the ear. Anyways, okay. So Cora Works said RO is available from the water refill stations too, like Glacier or Primo. That's not RODI, but it's RO. They also sell at pet stores RODI. But how do you guys feel about that? I've
I
always
think
been.
each store you have to check with your meter to see what their output is, because around here you can get RO water. The TD can range. Some days you go there and it'll be fine. It'll be 4 or 5. Excuse me. And other times it'll be up in the 20s.
So when like let's just go with a pet store because that's what I've seen.
What was that?
You can buy supposedly. I said let's go with a pet store. Like if I go to PetSmart, they've got supposed water for a saltwater tank that's ready to go. Just pour it in. It's supposedly RODI with salt added, right? So I've
You
never
got more
trusted
money than I got.
Right, and it's expensive, but I've never trusted it. And if you buy water that's already got the salt added, you can't really use TDS to measure because that won't work. It's not pure water.
Right.
It's now. So, do you guys, am I crazy for not trusting it?
Well, I
Has
think it's just
anyone
plain
out there
stupid to do
used
it
it?
anyway.
Has anyone out there used it and had good experiences? I'm just curious. And Ray, what'd you say?
I just think it's stupid to buy water that's
Well,
already mixed.
well, but if you're in a situation where, like I said, you don't have water made, the RODI system will take hours and you need it then. I could see it then, but I just have never trusted it. And then back to what CoralWorks was saying, you can buy it from refill stations. So if it's RO though, and not RODI, what do you guys think about that?
Well, it's just not deionized. Like you can still drink it, whereas RODI, you don't want to drink it because you don't have those elements in there that the body needs in the water. I forget.
Sure, but I'm talking about for a tank. Like if you were to get RO water but not RODI water, would you just pour it
There's a
in?
lot of
Yeah,
people that do just use that. It just
What?
means that well, um, your TD reading is going to be higher because it hasn't gone through like the
DI.
deionizing aspect of it will actually lower the TD more than what the membrane does.
But
So
isn't that removing more organics? I mean, like, not organics, but what leads to organics? The stuff, the stuff in water we don't want in the tank. Like, would you just trust RO water?
no, a lot of people use just RO.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm asking. Is
I'll
Yeah,
I'll say when I first started, before I got my RODI unit, my first, I want to say, year and a half, I used tap water and added dechlorinator to it. Like I have, a little bottle, and that's what I use on my freshwater tank. They don't get special water, but I switched to RODI when I could afford it. Then I got a unit, but I don't know what difference it made in the tanks or the Seahorse's health or anything like that. I don't see a difference. Maybe it did. Maybe our TDS is so low to begin with
yep.
that it was acceptable. So I don't know what to say to that one. What the
Well,
differences are.
and the other part that scares
Outcome.
me is if a pet store is selling water, salt water, like pre-made salt water.
Mhm.
I really want to investigate and maybe call the number on the back of the barrel or the container or whatever, because again, I don't trust PetSmart.
Mhm.
So are they just putting their own tank water in a container, or is it from a distributor? That makes a difference to me too. I really don't. I'm asking these questions because I don't know. And Bonnie, I appreciate you bringing this up in many ways so we can investigate all the aspects of this, because RODI does take a minute to make for sure.
I
And I do,
imagine, wouldn't it say on the jug when you buy it,
yeah,
like the source, like how they make it, like we use, RODI, blah, 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 da, da, da.
yep,
I would think
yep.
that it says
No,
that
that's what I'm saying is that I'm going to go to PetSmart and
and
either
see.
buy a gallon or look on the back, take a picture of the number, and call and find out for you guys. I do see Aquaballs came. I've already connected with him on the side, guys. He's one of the guests we're going to have come in. Can't wait to investigate what he's doing right and how things are going for him very soon. So glad to see you here. And Bonnie said, I'm thinking a brute trash can on wheels, right? Just be careful.
That's heavy
You don't
water,
want it to
though.
tip, right? Yeah.
I was going to say, will
Yeah.
wheels work on that much weight?
Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to have pretty good angling to not tip it over. Aquaballs also said, I moved my dwarf seahorses to their own 10-gallon, no sand, only slow inside filter. There's about 8 left from 20. So Get your butt in here. Let's investigate. We won't pick you apart. Like I said, I've never kept dwarf seahorses, so
Hopefully he
you'll be
didn't transfer
educated.
the shrimp with it.
What?
Hopefully he didn't put the shrimp in this new tank.
Right. So again, Ray
Couldn't
might have
have
some
shrimp with
thoughts.
dwarfs.
Right. Ray might have some thoughts for you, but either way, I want to hear what's working for you and hear about your experience. And, again, I've never done it with dwarfs, so you'll be educating me. So it'll be great. Let's see, where else we at? I know I'm jumping around, guys. I'm sorry. But Bonnie did ask, hey, thank you, Kelly. Did your male get pregnant? So I have no fry. That's what I will say to begin with. I will also say that I've experienced the exact same thing. I wish Cheryl was still here because Cheryl and I have talked endlessly about males doing their first batches and what it equates. And it's been so long for me that I kind of am back to the beginning where I'm like, wait, why isn't it, whatever. But so when I told you guys I saw the egg exchange, I told you he got remote. I told you he started acting weird. And then I felt like he got fatter, but not to the point where I used to see pregnant males. Then nothing, just nothing. Then he was back to eating normal, not being seclusive. And I was like, okay, I must have been wrong. And Ray made fun of me a few weeks ago because I was like, well, I was 99% sure. So I could have been wrong. Or, like Cheryl and I have discussed multiple times, many times the first pregnancy, the male doesn't know what he's doing and he'll absorb the eggs. Or the female doesn't know what she's doing. She makes eggs that aren't hatchable, for a very easy way of putting it,
Viable.
and even viable. Thank you. And the male might take them, but he can't do anything with them. So whatever happens, I don't know if that was it, but I will tell you that I saw the
I've never
exact
had a seahorse with the or that absorbed back into its body that it transferred. Anytime there was a problem, they expelled it. What come out, and it might have been still eggs or it might have been partially developed ones, but they've always expelled it. I've never had anything that I know of that absorbed it.
I will say I agree with you. A lot of times we hear these stories or we hear the science and it's like, I've never seen that. So I'm not saying that's what happened because Ray, I'm with you. I've never seen that either. Even in my original seahorses that I had way back when my male got freaked out because I changed the lighting, maybe that I'm convinced it was because I changed the lighting and it freaked him out. Could have been something else, could have been something wrong with the eggs. I don't really know. But all I do know is he expelled these half egg with head fry that couldn't live, and it was awful. So I'm with you that I've always seen them expel them. But I would say at this point, I wouldn't know if he expelled something like that that had a head and a tail and then was an egg, then obviously I would know. But I
you
don't
didn't
know.
see anything.
I didn't see
Do your
anything.
females drop eggs? I mean, did you ever find
No,
dropped eggs?
I have
In
never
my
found drop
tank, I
eggs.
just found some just this morning. A lot of
Yeah,
mornings I find like they'll drop eggs just before breakfast
but
because
I
I get
will.
up earlier before they do. So I'll
Mhm.
say, oh, the tank's looking good. It's pretty clean, almost breakfast time. I come back to feed them breakfast and there's piles of eggs dumped.
Yep. See,
So
and
what's
I've seen
weird
that.
is Sadie doesn't do that, or if she does, I don't know about it. In my other tank, I never find dropped eggs.
Well, and I would say that I've seen dropped eggs before too in previous tanks.
Mm-hmm.
I maybe my seahorses aren't going to give me fry. Maybe I'm hoping that when I see them twirling up towards the surface and think I see them connecting, maybe they're really not. Maybe.
Well, I'm hoping mine don't at this point, because I
Right.
really don't want to do that again.
Right. Well, and Ray said might be assumption from those that thought there was a pregnancy and figured abortion was the only answer. Right.
Could be, yeah.
At this point, I'm admitting to you guys, I don't know. I swear they did a connection. I can't tell you that she actually put eggs in him or what happened from there. But no, there's no fry. I'm bummed. But I will say I saw it happen again with the same two seahorses very recently, I think 2 days ago. We'll see. I'm just holding out for we'll see. That's it. And then I'm going to start reaching out to other people that have fry that they want to get rid of. And I'm going to raise their fry. I will have fry one way or another. But, yeah. So, let's see. Okay, so back to the water, buying water. Cora Works said that's what they use at Petco and PetSmart and whatnot, Ray. That's what we used at Reese's with the trash cans full of mayonnaise too, and they held up just fine. Right, but were you guys talking about the water
wheels?
weight?
I think the wheels, maybe.
Yeah. And I agree that can work for sure. But all I know is working with those types of things, I'm the one who has bent it too far towards me, and then you're done, right? I mean, you're done. As long as you're smart enough to not bend it too far towards you to where it stays, to where the weight is down there and not on you, you're good. But I'm one of those people that, whoops, I dumped it too far this way and then it's all over. So that's all I was trying to say. Hey, Empire of Dirt Aquatics.
Looking at George's bit about the washing the brine shrimp hatchery. Maybe I shouldn't say something like this, but I didn't wash mine. I figured I didn't need to wash them each time because every time I finished with a batch, I'd be sterilizing with the peroxide. I figure if it's good enough, I'm sterilizing the culture medium that it's in and the hatched results, then I shouldn't have to do the washing all the time. And on top of that, I occasionally just change the hatchery because I was just using simple pop bottles, and that worked well for me for 20 years anyway.
Okay, wait a minute.
I cleaned mine out with a bleach bucket. Like I do a 5-gallon bucket of water and put a cup of disinfecting bleach in it. And I use that for all my cleaning of all the Seahorse supplies whenever I want to disinfect. So when I was doing my brine shrimp hatching, any equipment that was used, I'd rotate it in and out of that bleach bucket. So I'd have one clean one, use that. After I used it, it went and sat in the bleach bucket, for a half hour or however long. And then I'd rinse it, put it out to dry. And then next time I'd use that one. So I just rotated equipment, but I never used soap and water to wash anything.
So time out. First of all, I had to catch up, guys, because my chat is way behind yours. What you guys are seeing, I see it way later. But we're talking about washing BBS hatcheries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Aquaball said he uses soap and hot water every time you use it. Ray, you said you don't, right? You never cleaned them?
No, I don't remember ever cleaning them. I might have one earlier years, like back in the 90s, I might have for a bit, but I don't remember doing that.
So, and Holly,
my assumption was the sterilization that I was doing. Well, especially I was also
That makes sense.
I would decapsulate them myself, and that was using bleach to decapsulate them. So, and then after hatching, then they'd be treated with the peroxide.
So
And I
peroxide
didn't
tea.
decapsulate my own. So
But Holly, you were
But can you
saying
put that link up? Because when
so
I put it up, it doesn't work.
what?
the
Can you
link that
put
he
that
sent
link
to
up
us
that
in
I
the
put?
chat.
Oh yeah,
When
absolutely.
I put it up, it doesn't seem to work.
I got you. I got you right now. Here it is, the link he's talking about. There you go.
There may be,
And
I haven't updated in a long time, but there might be something on there to give him an idea
yeah,
to modify what he's doing to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
right, absolutely. And Holly, you said you bleached your so the
Yeah.
difference is
So
wait. The difference is I think you were using not expensive but purchased hatcheries that were maybe glass and plastic.
I
Is that
had plastic. Well, I had the plastic cones with a faucet on them,
okay?
and then I had the hatching buckets. The hatching boxes that have the little pill box on top.
Right.
And then I used also fish bowls and plastic forks for stirring. I mean, I used all kinds of little equipment stuff and
Sure.
type all kinds of things. But
Well, the
all
only
of
reason
it, I'd throw it in the bleach bucket, which I learned how to make actually from Dan. Because when I was new and I asked
Yep.
about, how to clean stuff, and what he says, oh, you put them in a bleach bucket, but I didn't know how to make a bleach bucket. It's not
Right.
straight bleach, So he said, you take a 5-gallon bucket, put a cup of bleach, and then I fill it with hot water, and that's my bleach bucket. And that's what I do when I have cleaning day on Wednesdays for the seahorses. Anything that's grown some algae or whatever or anything that I want to sterilize, I throw it in that bucket for a little while, and then I just rinse it and let it dry naturally.
Absolutely. And the only reason I was asking is because I always made my own hatcheries, right? I always used 2 liters
Yeah, you could do a
inverted.
2-liter bottle, same thing.
You would put that in a bleach bucket. Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's plastic.
I never did, but I will tell you that one of the things that Dan did talk about constantly
Mhm.
is the fact that if you're talking about a 2-liter that you've made, or even anything that can get scratches and stuff, if
Mhm.
you start seeing scratches or,
Mhm.
where it's been,
Mhm.
bent, whatever, any
Bacteria.
of that is where bacteria will grow. And he did say that the hatchery is where all the problems start, right? That's
Mhm.
it. Because if
Mhm.
you add food that has problems, bacterial
Mhm.
problems, you're in a mess. But Ray, your answer was, and I think overwhelmingly the answer that we've come up with is to use peroxide after they're out of the hatchery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but to
Right?
start with, I was using the bleach to, what's the
To
word?
Do the eggs.
decapsulate, to
Yeah,
Yeah, to
decapsulate the
encapsulate.
right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
So it
Well,
wouldn't matter if the bottles were scratched all to hell, it was going to be bleached anyway.
right.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like I didn't decapsulate my own eggs. I bought them already decapsulated. So you're trusting someone else, right? And then I don't know. I just remember Dan saying that, if your hatchery's starting to look rugged and old, don't clean it, get rid of it, do a new one. It's just a 2-liter bottle, right? I mean, if you have invested in expensive equipment, that's a different situation. I'm just saying if it's starting to look rough, maybe don't trust it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about the washing with soap and hot water. Dan was a firm believer in Dawn soap. I do know that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how you'd like aquaballs. I don't know what kind of hatchery you're using. Can't wait for you to be our guest, so that you can come in here and tell us. Get with me on the side. But like I know that was what Dan used for most things. I just don't know, like if you have cracks and creases, is the soap getting stuck in there? I don't
Or if
know.
you scrub it, you're making scratches
Scratches.
if you're
Right.
scrubbing.
Right. And he said, now I have 5 saltwater tanks. Man, the salt is not cheap. $90 for 200 gallons. That's a whole other conversation, man. We have talked about that endlessly, how it's just getting so expensive.
Yeah, I pay the best deal I found. I joined Petco's Fish Club and I get repeat delivery. And whenever I order a bucket of salt, it's about $42. And normally, like if it's not on sale, it goes way up. And then I have to look around. But I always end up paying whatever deal I find. Usually the cheapest I find is right around $42.
Yeah.
And I go through 2 buckets a month now. So ouch.
So that's another conversation we've had and need to have more, is that I think the consensus is that we keep, like, it's not a rule, guys, but
Mm.
you can keep seahorses at a lower salinity than a reef tank. Did you,
Save
Ray?
salt.
I
Save salt.
no, for me, I mixed Instant Ocean half and half with my homemade mixture.
Okay.
But to make that viable, like you have to buy the chemicals to make it, you only have your 4 basics, and one it's water softener salt that doesn't have a damn thing in it, but the water softener salt, and but I'm trying to think now. My mind isn't working. But there's only 4 basic salts that I use in it, and for the ones that aren't like water softener salt that you can just go out and buy at Home Hardware or something like that, uh, the salts have to be bought at a chemical company, and you have to order large quantities. So
Right.
it
Go ahead.
doesn't make it practical for someone that's just got smaller volumes. But like I was dealing with 1,000 gallons of water
Right.
uh, at a time,
But
and
if you are dealing with just a tank or a couple tanks or whatever, and you're not making your own salt, you're just using bought salt. My point is, did you keep your tanks at a lower salinity than you
no,
did your reef tank?
no.
Really? Was that because you were mixing from multiple tanks though? Because I
I
can
just figured
say,
if, for the most part, they're coming from higher salinity, although they're in areas where it's variable. It'll change as
yes,
the water flowing off of the shoreline that gets into the estuary. Um, things will change. The pH will change. The specific gravity will change. Temperature will change. A lot of
sure.
variables like that. But I just figured, for my own purposes, if I keep it stable at an area that works for corals and my other saltwater fish, then it should be working good for them.
So I would agree with you. But when you gave that whole um, talk, or when you said all of that about where they come from, where our seahorses typically come from is a breeder, right? They're not
Yeah.
coming from the ocean. They never touch the ocean. They've been in tubs, right? And they've been in very serene tubs that, are specific, whatever, temperature, all that. It's kept perfect.
Yeah,
And
but the thing
so,
is, these seahorses, um, like they've evolved somewhat over, I don't know how many
lots of
years, but
years. Yep.
so many years, and the changes uh, don't happen fast. So
Right.
they're in their history, from where we have ones that we're buying that are captive bred, going back a few generations, uh, their parentage was wild, and they were living in these other situations, and
Hmm.
they haven't had enough generations to get that out of their system
Sure.
to be totally needing the new system's water. So
So I
they
don't,
should still be capable of handling it.
Yes, and I'm not disagreeing with you whatsoever. All I'm trying to say is, for ease of me, like for my ease, when I had a reef tank and then I had 10 seahorse tanks, I mixed all my water 1.25, as
Mhm.
Aquaballs was saying. He has his 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 dwarf seahorses were wild, so he kept them at 1.025. 1.25, I will say. And that's working for you. Don't change it. Nobody's saying change it. All I'm saying is, for someone new that's keeping seahorses, first thing I would do is ask the person you're buying from what they keep their salinity at. And the only reason we're having this discussion is because salt's so expensive. And all I'm trying to say is, I think, Holly, what are your tanks at right now, salinity wise?
I run mine about 1.022. I'll let
Okay.
it get as low as 1.020. If it hits 1.023, I'm adding fresh water.
Okay. Gotcha. So I'm just saying that if that's a thing for you, that they can, if you don't do it drastically, be fine at a lower salinity. So I was just trying to provide a
And
benefit to
I
keeping
didn't keep
seahorses.
coral, but I've kept
Right.
my peppermint shrimp, my crabs, and my goby all at that same salinity, and everyone's fine with it.
But great
I
point.
don't
It
do
depends on
coral,
what you're keeping. It depends on what
but
you're
the fish
keeping.
seem to be okay with it.
That's one of the main things I've always said in videos, even the old ones from 5, 10 years ago, is that it depends on what you're keeping, right? Like if you have different things in the tank, you have to consider all of them, right? If you have a seahorse only tank with some gorgonians, you have a little bit more flexibility in what you can do. I was just making the point that they can be kept at lower salinity, but they also can be kept at 1.0, 1.25. Is it not 1.025? Why do I want to keep saying oh?
1.0, it's 1.025.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Because I was like, wait a minute. But 1.025,
Is how you
that's
say it. Yeah.
not wrong. There is no real wrong. And
Well, they're
I just know that
flexible as
in
long
my
as you don't change it too fast. They're good with
right.
different salinities is the thing. So you have to pay attention to what you're keeping with them.
And I will tell you though, she's right, what you're keeping with them and your experience level. Because I've been working on the website a little bit when I have time. And I was writing this article and I was trying to come up with, there's so many different ways you can do this. There's no way to say this is the right thing. But if you're brand new and you're doing things, you need to do things by the book and follow those instructions. Then once you get to say Holly or Maya Ray or whatever's level, then you can start saying, okay, let me slowly lower the salinity, save money on salt, see what happens. Because then you'll know if your seahorses are like, this ain't working for me. This is not, no, I'm going to get moody. I'm going to stop eating. I'm not going to be happy. And then you can change it back slowly. But you should absolutely follow the guidelines to begin with. But then you find out that there are ways you can veer off the path. It just takes experience and knowing your
Figure it out.
seahorses.
And I've
Yeah.
never had to raise my salinity. I have no reason to raise it.
Well,
I use the same formula. What I have to do is make up in the summertime for evaporation sometimes. So I'll check my salinity when I'm getting ready to add water to the tank after siphoning. And if I get a little bit higher than my 1.022, like I said, if I get a 1.023, instead of adding salt water to make up for what I siphon out, I will add the fresh water. I keep jugs of
yep,
gallon milk jugs of fresh water, two of them
yep.
next to each tank. And then I just use that. So I'm only putting in a half a gallon to a gallon of fresh water. So it's not going to drop the salinity huge. but it's going to save my salt water and bring the salinity down a little bit. So, so that's
Right.
how I keep it in balance. What's interesting is in the winter, I almost never need to use fresh water. I just use salt water because
Yep.
it's
It's
evaporating as
well,
fast.
and what I'm curious, and Ray made the comment, even using 10% less salt wouldn't be a
Hmm.
savings. You don't think so?
Not a big saving.
Hmm.
A dollar counts these days, Ray. That's all. But I would say I am very curious. I got to get someone like uh, Dan or Cheryl, or I mean, even you, Ray. I'd be curious how salinity affects breeding, because for anybody who's played with it, because I know temperature affects breeding. I know lighting affects breeding. I know there's all these tricks in trade, but I just wonder if salinity plays any part. Like if they, because the water's saltier, think it's a certain time of year. You know what I mean? Like you said, their genetics, what they've, not because they lived in it, but because that's what they're ingrained to know. If they think, oh, the water's saltier, so it must be winter or whatever. I'm just curious.
What's something
But
that we would play with if we're having trouble getting production and changing the specific gravity would be one of the things we played with. And usually you
yeah,
went down because you can go down fairly easy. You can instantly change it downwards quite a few points. But if you want it to go upwards, do it slowly. And usually what we recommended then is allow it to go up from evaporation instead
hmm
of instead of adding uh, fresh water to keep the specific gravity stable. Stop adding it, and the specific gravity will then rise. And then once you've got it to where you're at, then you can keep adding water from then on, and when you do a water change, add at the new specific gravity.
gotcha. Well, and no, great points, Ray. I'm sorry, I was getting distracted, but I did hear you. And great points. It's always easier to go down than up with everything. Doesn't matter temperature, salinity. Always easier to go down than up. But Aquaball said that he visited Aqua San Diego, or Aqua SD in San Diego. They have two different kinds of seahorses. The price was 500 and 300. Wow, that's insane. Like I can't imagine. Oh, that just bothers me so much that a seahorse is $500 now. That's just, is that not insane, you guys? I mean, were they specialized
Kind of
seahorses?
Yeah, I'm
limits
wondering.
the market that is going to be available for them.
Well, yeah, but I'm wondering if maybe, like, since it was a show, I'm wondering if it wasn't like a biota booth where they were showing zebra seahorses or something. I could see them being super expensive or some specialty species, right? If they were just erectus and they're selling for that much, holy moly, we're in trouble, guys. That's all I have to say. Um, but we're going to have Aquaballs on here as a guest. He is checking his calendar. He's going to let me know what Wednesday he can come. I also did want to announce I've been in touch with Graham Short. If you don't remember, Graham Short is the ichthyologist, worked for California University of Science. Is that how you say it? Anyways, he is a scientist, a true scientist. He studies seahorses in the wild. He has already described, he was in part responsible for the description of the Japapigu, Hippocampus japapigu, the pygmy seahorse. So we're going to have him back on here. Hopefully, I can get him and Chris in here on the same week. But we do have some exciting and cool things coming. I will advertise for those things. But you guys, what I need your help with is sharing. So when you see that Aquaballs is going to be our guest, put it in your groups, put it on your page, let people know, because it won't be just us rambling and talking about whatever. It'll be someone actually sharing. When I have Graham Short in here and Chris, we need to get as many people here as possible because that's going to be some key information and a cool conversation. But anyways, back to the point. Aquaball said, I'm changing water every other day, 2.5 gallons to keep them clean. That's really cool.
That
Okay,
makes
and
me think I have tadpoles right now from a bucket outside. I brought them in just for fun. I put them in a 5-gallon tank, and they're getting a 5-gallon water change every single morning. Thank goodness they aren't salt water, but
right.
that reminds me of doing the fry, all those water
Yeah.
changes so frequently.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you're talking about dwarves, that's why I can't wait to have him come in and share with us what's working for him. Because the reason that I'm not dreading fry if I ever get them, you guys, but if I ever get them, whether
They
it be
grow
one of
up.
you sending me some or mine giving me some, the reason I don't dread it is when you're talking about 2.5 gallon water changes on small tanks or
It's
even
nothing,
daily, what it's nothing.
right?
It's
Compared to
not
your
the
big water
same.
change day, that's how I feel about it too.
Yeah.
Like my 10-gallon freshwater tank, I do that once a week, and I change out like 10 gallons because it's about a 30-gallon tank, and it feels like nothing compared to Seahorse water change day.
Right,
But I'm
right.
doing 2 big tanks.
So again, we're not out here trying to tell anybody if you're setting up and you do not want to breed, you just want to keep seahorses, adult seahorses, erectus, go big. Because yes, it's more of a pain to do the water changes, but the bigger you go, the more flexibility you have, the more room for error you have. Always go bigger with adult species of like erectus or any of the adult bigger species. If you're talking about dwarves, well, I've never kept them, so we're going to let Aquaballs come in here and tell us what's worked for him. We're going to listen to Ray, who's kept them. Holly kept them, but I don't think it
Briefly, no,
it wasn't great.
they arrived when I was doomed from the start. I bought them from a place in Florida that sent you like all their friends.
Yeah.
So it came with
All
Callirpa,
that
which
stuff.
was infested with hydroids and
Yep.
horseshoe
Yep.
crab, all kinds of fun little stuff. But yeah, they did not
Well,
last
and
long.
that was how many years ago, Holly?
Oh, that was 2007.
So we're not saying that happens anymore, but don't go for
Hopefully
that
not.
kind of deal.
If you see
Don't
that
go there.
package deal, don't get it.
Right, right. And I would just say it'll
I
be a
see
fun.
Chris Carey, yay.
I know, I saw Chris too. I was going to say that too. But Chris, you just missed it. I was talking about the fact that, again, just to reiterate what I just said, if you're new, you're setting up for a pair or two of erectus, go big for sure. If you're talking about dwarves, we're going to have Aquaballs in here to talk about what's worked for him. And Graham, I wanted to tell you, Chris, that Graham responded. I think I messaged you, but he responded. I'm trying to work out a date, but when I do, you got to be here because it's going to be an awesome conversation to have you and him talk about what's really going on with seahorses. Maybe not in our tanks, but in the wild, because that'll answer lots of questions for us too. Yeah. So glad to have you here. Jump in if you want. I'm gonna have to end it soon, guys. Life's stressful.
So it looks like that website has a bunch of different kinds of seahorses. I'm seeing people share.
Sorry, I was supposed to share it. There it is. All right, hang on. Let me see if I can pull it up and show everybody watching. Was Ray's link correct?
Sorry?
Was Ray's link correct?
Well, of course it is.
Okay.
I just copied the link that I was sitting watching, so it had to be.
All right, here we go. So this is the link we're talking about. And yeah, spotted seahorse.
I see a reed eye.
That's Cuda.
Cuda.
Yeah, that's Cuda. That's
Pretty.
Abdominalis.
I'll
Oh,
bet
it
you
does
most
say
of them don't
CUDA.
look like that picture though.
Right. You can already see that they're getting dark. They're dark around the edges. They'll be black. But that's fine. Those are the only two I'm seeing though. Where did you
Yeah,
see
that's all they're
multiple,
selling.
Holly? And why my question is, why were they 300 and 500 at the show? What the heck? Right? But whatever. I'll drop it. Anyway, I'll just drop it there. But I would say
I
200
don't know
for
what show you were talking about. I thought he was just into that store.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong. I thought he went to a show. I'm
I think
sorry.
he was talking about the store.
My bad. I thought you guys were talking about. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to keep up with the comments, not doing a great job. So I'd be curious though why there's so much in person but less on the website. That's interesting.
Oh yeah, he says it's a huge place, a big business place, bunch of frag tanks. I counted about 50 big tanks, so a really big
Well,
aquarium.
Aqua Balls, after we have you on as a guest to talk about your dwarfs, maybe we'll have to have you on as a guest to go in the store and do
Yeah,
some
take us
interviews
on
there.
a tour.
Tell
Yeah,
us what's
we don't
going
have
on.
anything like that where I live.
Me either. Me either. Which that's cool, but that's again why we need more local breeders to become part of our community so that seahorses aren't $300 to $500. That's I can't afford that. I don't know about you guys. I can't afford that. And yeah,
I think
that's
my
just
Erectus were $70. What was
yeah.
that? 5 years ago?
Yeah. And I mean,
When
I
I
know when
got
I
my
bought from Dan, it was a long time ago, but I
Mhm,
never paid more than I think $200 for a seahorse. And
mhm,
I got Cuda, Barbori, Erectus,
mhm.
hybrids, piebalds. I mean, they were never these crazy prices we're seeing. Oh, they're on sale now, you said. Okay,
That's why they're
gotcha.
cheaper. Yeah.
Gotcha. And I did see that. I'm sorry. I try to keep up. Guys, it's a rough life. Whew. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that's why we need more hobbyist breeders to step up, get the site done to where there's a connection point where we can share with each other and make those connections with people we trust through the site, so that we're not spending that much. And we need more commercial breeders to, start doing seahorses. I really hope they do. I would hate to see us stop having seahorses in the industry because they make my day, right? Like I come home, the day's shit. I'm pissed off about everything. My kids piss me off. They're pissing me off worse. I walk in, I had a rough day, and I need
The
money and this, that,
seahorses are so happy to see you, though.
and you walk up to the tank, and here's these seahorses that are like,
Yay,
welcome
you're home.
home. Let
Yeah.
me look
Do you
beautiful
have a
for
turkey
you.
baster?
Do you? Yes, they're asking for something too. Yes, but it's different because they can't mouth you. They can't be disrespectful.
Yeah,
They're just saying, did you have something for me, mama?
yeah,
And they're beautiful and they dance for you and they interact with you. Like it's different from any other fish. Like
yeah.
I've kept every tank. I've kept freshwater. I've bred angelfish. I've freshwater. I've bred discus. I've kept reef. I love coral.
Mhm,
If I do another saltwater tank, it would
mhm.
be coral. But seahorses will always be my favorite tank. They are just so much like puppy dogs
Their
that it's unreal.
personalities are the best.
Yes. Like it you guys hear Holly and you're like, oh my God, it's the days and lives of Holly's tank. It's some soap opera. But it really is that way. And
Yeah.
her seahorses aren't even as active as mine. Mine are much more
Mhm.
active than hers. But she still
Yeah.
has this relationship with them, and they have a relationship with each other. And it's just more, it's almost like they're more human. I don't want to say they're more human. That's not a good way to put it. But they're more interacting with humans. You can
Yeah.
have a tank full of beautiful tangs and coral and everything else, and it can be gorgeous. I love my reef tank. I loved my reef tank. But none of it, like the tanks didn't come up and dance for me or, like talk to me
Yeah.
or whatnot. So I just hope we don't lose seahorses in the trade. And Ray said, I'm done with this conversation, you women. but,
Yeah.
but, um,
They're so
and
cute and funny to watch. They're really great. And I love sometimes I'll have people with kids over and I'll let the kids feed them, yeah,
oh
with the
yeah,
turkey baster. And they think it's really cool because they'll be interacting with the seahorse, and the seahorse, is like, oh, you know what you're doing.
yep. Guys, I literally have a video up. It's very old, so it's not great. But go watch Seahorse Whisperer Junior. My daughters like redid the how to set up a seahorse tank video, but they were doing it, right? So it's really cute, and it's you can see the seahorses just come up to them and
Mhm,
interact with them. They're just amazing. I love seahorses. I'm gonna shut up now, but yeah.
mhm.
So back to my previous comments. Chris Carey, you got to get with me so me, you, and Graham can set up the day you guys will all be here. Aqua Balls, can't wait to have you on. I know we messaged earlier, but keep in touch and let me know what day works. And if you guys have any, Bonnie, thank you so much for all your questions tonight. That's what keeps the combo going, right? So me and Holly aren't just, and Ray aren't just sitting here shooting the poo. So thank you guys. And I don't care for a small channel. I love this. I miss you guys when I'm not here. Last week sucked, and I was like, I didn't get my juice of seahorse one Wednesday, right? It sucked. So I'm just glad we're all here. I appreciate all of you. Once we get the guests coming, you guys got to help me share so we do get more people here on those nights so that guests, because Graham Short is just awesome, and he's going to come just because he's awesome. Aquaballs is going to come because he's part of our community and he wants to share what's working for him to help somebody else. But like to get some of the bigger people we'd like to hear from, they look at the channel and they're like, it's
It's
not
not
big
worth
enough.
it. Yeah.
Right. So the more we share, the more we get people to come on the days where it is important. Like I know not everybody's going to be interested in everything we talked about tonight, right? But when I have someone like Graham Short on, or when Aquaballs comes and talks about dwarf seahorses, that's when I need you guys to help me share the posts. I'll make posts, we share them, we get more people to come so that in the future I can say, oh, but when we have a guest, then people come, right? Um, so yeah, yeah.
I'd like
And
to
thank
make
you
a
guys.
comment for George
Please,
before we go there.
please.
He
Yes.
mentioned that he's moved them to a 10-gallon tank and there's only about 8 left. I would suggest you're going to be better off to get I'd say a 2.5-gallon tank, 5 at the largest, but with that number, 2.5 is plenty big enough because
Mhm.
you can then get a feeding density in that volume of water that's going to be sufficient that they will feed properly and not starve.
So your whole point, Ray, that in a smaller tank for dwarf fry, you're able to feed less because the food is right there and the fry can eat it and not have to chase
Yeah,
it.
it's easy. It's
Right.
easier to get the density that they need. A
Mhm.
lot of people with dwarfs failed because they never had sufficient food
Food.
density for
Right.
the dwarfs to feed what they actually needed to survive.
Mhm.
No, I get that. And I will say in the how to set up for dwarves video that I made, that I had help from Lucy and Dan on. But again, guys, I never kept dwarves. We compared them to seahorse fry. And one of the things that Dan always said was the best setup for dwarf seahorses would be, say, a 10-gallon tank or smaller with a huge sump. So have all the
Mhm.
filtration underneath, but a smaller tank for the density like Ray's talking about. But I agree with Ray's um, advice for fry, because then you're talking, if you're going to do massive water changes to keep it clean anyways, or
Mhm.
do, I know Lucy used to do a switch out system where
That's
she
how
had
I did
two,
my fry.
yep, two small systems, but literally instead of doing water changes, she just put the
Change them to
dwarfs in
the
the new
other one
tank.
and clean
Yep,
the other. Mm-hmm.
yep.
I had no
So there,
problem keeping 50 adults in a 5-gallon tank.
Yeah, I was gonna say that dwarfs, they don't. You want them in less water volume because they need a cloud of food
yeah.
to eat, right?
And
You know,
they
so
don't hunt, right? They, I mean, I never kept them, guys,
Some
but
will,
but
not
some
they
will, but
usually
most of
don't.
them won't. And
not
even the
really.
ones that will, they won't hunt enough to get the nutrition that they need.
Mhm.
Sure. And so like it's the exact opposite with the rectus. They want to hunt. They, you know, or combs or whatever. They want to hunt. They want to chase it. Broadcast feeding's amazing, but I get it. Like I've never kept them, but with dwarves, it seems like smaller so that the food's right there, and more in their face kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
So good. But I mean, aqua balls, we want to hear what's working for you, because something is. You're keeping them going, and that's amazing. Um, and I like it when people come and they are doing things differently,
Mhm.
because we can know a perfect way of doing things and this will work, but not everybody wants to do it that way. So when people try something new, of course we're going to be skeptical and we're going to say, well, what about this, what about that? But when it works, then we buy in and we can help represent that and say, here's another way of doing it, right? So,
Mhm.
and Bonnie did say, isn't it harder to keep the tank parameters with such a small volume of water? Sorry, Ray. Ray.
Hello, guys are typing.
I know, but you got to say it as live too. Tell us.
Yeah, well, it's not. In my opinion, it's not hard because you're dealing with such a small tank, um, and because of the needs of the dwarfs and the fact you're not having sophisticated filtration systems, especially that might suck them up. But for me, I just used open-ended air lines for water movement, and so basically kept the water quality up by doing frequent water changes and large volumes at a time when I did it. And it was no
So, but
problem that way.
Because
so,
they're in
but
a
she was
small
asking.
container, just like fry. If you're only working with 5 gallons of water or 10 gallons, it's it's
Yeah,
it's not
but
hard
guys,
to do a water change.
she wasn't asking about water changes. She was asking about parameters. So what I think she's asking, correct me if I'm wrong, but like if it was me setting up for dwarves, my question would be, if seahorses, like we've talked so many times about, it's better to go down than up when it comes to
Mhm.
temperature, salinity, whatever. But if you're living in a home that maybe the heat does go up and down or whatever, she's asking, I think, in a smaller tank without
Yeah.
that vast equipment, how do you control the temperature? How do you control the salinity? How do you make sure, like obviously doing vast water changes controls ammonia, nitrates. So you're not exactly as worried about the nitrogen cycle in a fry tank because you're doing such vast water
Yeah.
changes. But what
I'm
about the
always
other
using the
parameters?
same water. So the parameters of the water are never different because I make the water the same way all the time. I use 2 cups and uh, uh, 2 tablespoons of salt in every bucket of water. Every time. I've always done that. It's always exactly the same parameters. What will change is the temperature. Like if your house temperature changes, you need to figure out a way to control that. If it's drastic, Like when I was doing fry, I just kept tanks at room temperature, but I'd have to use, depending on the time of year. Sometimes I'd have to use a heater. Sometimes I'd have to use like a bottle of ice or an ice pack to cool down their water.
Wait,
But
how did you
other
do that
parameters,
in a small fry tank?
what's that?
How would you use, like, are you talking about like a beta heater that doesn't burn them, or?
Just a regular little heater, and then if it was one that could burn them, I'd section it off so they couldn't get to that part of the tank.
Gotcha.
So the water could go, but they couldn't.
Gotcha.
There's ways you can do that. I had some creative
Sure.
ways, but
Sure.
mostly they were born during the summer, so I didn't have that issue. I was mostly using ice to keep them cool. So I'd put ice in a Ziploc bag or in, I'd freeze. Like for bigger tanks, I use 2-liter pop bottles filled with water, keep them in the freezer, float them in the tank. So fans, you can use fans. But
So real
most
quick,
people keep their house like you, like one temperature all the time. So
right.
you're probably not going to have to worry about all that.
So that works for temp. I want to say hello, Rakesh. I hope I pronounced your name wrong. We love newcomers. Do you keep seahorses, or are you just interested, or are you just popping by? Either way, welcome. And Ray, this is going to you. So in a smaller tank, excuse me, like a smaller tank, like if you're using 5-gallon tanks or fish bowls or something for fry or dwarfs. As Holly said, if you're making your salt the same way every time, then it should stay the same. But that's only if you're doing the exchange method, where you're literally using that water that you've made the exact same way to make a new tank and transferring the fry or dwarfs. If you're doing a water change and leaving even that much water in a smaller tank, that's going to affect the salinity, isn't it?
Well, I got lost there.
Okay, sorry. I'll ask it much more simply. If you have a 5-gallon tank and you make your water the same all the time, same salinity when you're making your water, and you want your tank to stay that same salinity, but you do a 90% water change and there's 10% left in the tank, then you adding water that is the same salinity, would that not raise the salinity?
Not
Because
if you're taking out just what and replacing just what you take out.
Okay. I mean, I
If
get what
you
you're
add
saying.
salt water to top up for evaporation, that will raise the salinity. But if you take out a gallon and put in a gallon, that doesn't change a thing.
So if you're doing fry or dwarfs, I guess the thing that I'm thinking about is, even in my Erectus tanks, I use the turkey baster to suck up food constantly. Like Holly was saying, they get a mini water change every day. But when you do that, you should just replace it with RODI water. I mean, that's what I do.
No, I use salt water to replace when I siphon, but I'm siphoning more because I don't use a turkey baster to siphon. I use a siphon like I do when I'm doing their water change.
Yeah.
So I'm taking out, a gallon or so. It usually comes out to be about a gallon.
Okay. So the only time you use RODI in your tanks, Holly, is if it's gone down and you've done nothing.
You mean the freshwater RODI with no salt in it?
Right.
Yeah. What I'll do is, after siphoning, usually once a day, one of the times that I siphon, it might be in the morning, for instance, I'll check their salinity. And if it's gone up a little bit, instead of adding back in the salt water, I add in fresh water.
Gotcha. So, yeah, I'm not giving advice at all. Listen to them.
And I don't follow it exactly, as long as it stays in that range, like I said, because like Ray said, you can go down safely,
Right.
and I don't go down that much, and I'm never trying to raise it. So it'll raise gradually on its
Yep.
own. And then it
Yep.
hits the point where I say, nope, I think I will add some fresh water. And then it kind of goes back down until I'm happy with where it's at.
So
So it,
for seahorse keepers, one of the key pieces of equipment is now I can't think of the word. Oh my god, what is the piece of equipment, you guys, that
well, I
tests
use a
salinity?
hydrometer.
Hydrometer.
I
Okay.
also have the other thing. There's a fancier one, but I just use a regular hydrometer, not the.
I'm going to get mine. Hang on. All right. But Bonnie had a few more questions while I go grab it. What about the dissolved organics building up with the amount of BBS you need in the tank? Also, oxygen would be hard to keep it high enough with that many BBS in the tank. Thoughts?
Well, you're removing them when you switch them. When you do your water change, whatever. I mean, that's how I did my fry. I was removing all the brine shrimp along with the water. So you're giving them fresh, clean food too.
Ray, do you have any thoughts?
Well, for me, I see there's no problem, mainly because of that frequency and the volume of the water changes you have to do. Like I use no filters at all in my dwarf tanks. Never. Strictly doing water changes. Well, I shouldn't
Okay.
say that. I had a mini filter that I used to put on a timer. So it would, the timer would come on and run for a couple hours before it was feeding time again. And that mini filter would take out the brine shrimp for me. And then
Oops.
so when I did my second feeding of the day, then the depleted, nutrient depleted Artemia now were gone. And then I had the new fresh stuff so that there was no mixture of newly enriched with depleted Artemia. They were all ones that were enriched going in there. And
Gotcha.
so I would just take the filter when I put the new feed in. I would take that filter. It's just a little mini one, and I would take that and just rinse off all the Artemia, stick it back in. The timer was already set all the time. I didn't have to play with it, and it would come on twice a day. Once in the morning before I was going to do the morning feeding, and then at night in the evening it would come on before I was doing the evening feeding. But then I would do every other day. I would do like almost 100%. I didn't measure the exact amount of water, so I'm guessing it was probably 95%. And so I was changing that every other day. Like you can do it fast with a simple little 5-gallon tank, and it's economical with the amount of salt that you need for a 5. I actually started off with a 2.5, but once I got up to about 20 or so seahorses, then I moved into the 5-gallon, and then my population, I stayed roughly in that 40 to 50 range because I'd sell off the any amounts that were getting over that limit. The mistake I run into, I was always selling off the babies. Never thought about keeping babies to replenish the adults, because my experience was that after about a year, the adults quit producing.
Yep.
So I had to get some get some seahorses back from people I sold them to in order to get the group going again, get the production going again.
See, aqua balls I know you're doing things differently, but that's why it's going to be such a fascinating conversation when you come, because what you're doing is working, and Ray's experience might help you, right? So before we get ahead of ourselves, Bonnie did say, when changing such a large water change, do you remove the horses first so the specific gravity doesn't go up too fast? And
When
Ray,
you do
you
a
were
water
saying you did
change,
not.
the specific gravity doesn't change.
It's the
Right.
same water. Yeah. If you use the same formula for making your salt water, it's like he was explaining to Kelly. You're putting the same specific gravity water
I
in
know, but
that
don't
you
make
took
me
out.
but don't make me and Bonnie feel stupid, because we've kept seahorses, and as a seahorse keeper, I know how many times I'm removing water from that tank. So to me, I do understand if you take out and replace exactly, it's staying the same. I get that. It's just, to me, I'm talking about, do you use salt or fresh water when you're doing the siphoning at the end of the night, when you're not doing a water change? To me, I use the fresh water. Holly, you use salt water.
Yep.
Who
If you're
knows?
using fresh water, you're low in the specific gravity.
It never does. And I'm in a
Well,
smaller
it's
tank.
it's because you have
It's
more
such a small amount,
evaporation than I do then.
right? And
You're
see, there's
probably
all
losing
these,
salt or you're
right,
losing the water at a faster rate. So for you, that works. For
right.
me, I don't lose a lot to evaporation, obviously. So
And
I
guys,
don't
this is
use
this
the
is why
fresh
it's
water.
so hard to make articles about seahorses, because I can say what works for me in a 40-gallon tank, it ain't gonna work for a 100-gallon tank, right? It's different. Everything's so different. But
But
It
the
that's where
way
we
won't
you
come
can tell
necessarily
together.
is
work for
by
the same size
measuring,
tank.
like you were
Wait,
talking about the hydrometers, hygrometer. You measure it, and that'll tell you if
so
you.
wait. Before we go any further, the word is refractometer. That's the word I was looking
Well,
for.
I don't use that. I use
Okay, well,
this.
hang
I
on.
use a hydrometer.
I use
Okay,
this. This is a hydrometer.
so I was told a long time ago not to
And
trust
I
those.
have a refractometer, but it's a bitch.
So, real quick, let me just show what I'm talking about. So, this is mine. I literally just broke it. I literally just broke the cap off when I
I
was
was
grabbing it
afraid
to
of that
show
when I
you.
heard it hit the floor.
Yep. So, anyways, it's usually hooked on like this. I'll have to get a new one or just use my fingers. But basically, the way it works is this part goes up here. You literally put water from the tank or your new water right here. You have to balance it so it doesn't come off. The lid goes back on, and then you can look through here, right? I can't show you what it shows me, but
Yeah.
bottom line is, it literally, like, if I'm looking through it, you have to point it towards the light, and it will tell you exactly what your specific gravity is. So I would say this or a hydrometer. That's fine if that's what you choose. I think this is more accurate. You
They
do
are
have,
more accurate. The one thing about
wait,
those
wait, wait,
that
wait, wait, wait,
I
wait.
don't
Let me
use
wait.
them
Hang
is
on, hang on,
temperature.
hang on, Holly. Let me finish what I was saying. What I was saying is, so these I think are more accurate, but you do have to calibrate them.
Mhm.
So if you need to know how, look it up or ask us online, and we can tell you. But you do have to calibrate it, because it's so accurate that if it's off to begin with, you're going to be off in general. So you have to calibrate it, make sure that it's correct for completely zero TDS RODI water or distilled water before you go testing anything, to make sure that what you're getting is an accurate reading. But when you use one of these puppies, you're going to know what your salinity is. And I would say that's a key piece of equipment for any seahorse keeper, just so that you make sure you're always going down or staying the same and never going up. Go ahead, Holly. Sorry.
I
Temperature.
disagree.
So the
Okay.
problem I have with those is in the calibrating. Like when you read the instructions, it has to do with temperature. The
Mm-hmm.
temperature of the water used to calibrate has to be the same as the temperature in your tank, I believe, or the air in
So
the
wouldn't
rest
it
of
be
the
in your
tank.
house though?
No, it's never in my house matching.
So
So
again,
so I
right,
can't,
different.
but I did do it at the right time of year when things did match. I calibrated and used it. and it matches my hydrometer. So I know the hydrometer's right. So
Right.
I'm like, I'm going to use the hydrometer. But actually, the refractometer was a new thing to me. And when I got it, I used it a few times, and it was so difficult that I said, screw it, I'm going back to the hydrometer.
So
To
Ray, you disagree with.
calibrating.
So wait, before we go to Ray, I want to say, hey Zen Ginger, we missed you. And I did my big apology at the beginning. Go back and watch it for not being here next week. I talked about my appreciation for people like you reaching out. Talked
Hey,
about
Zen, we're
multiple
all
things.
thinking about your mom.
Yes. Oh wait, what?
We're all thinking about her mom. She's in the hospital.
Oh,
Oh,
yes,
no.
yes. Yes, absolutely. And you did show yourself using a refractometer, how to use it. So guys, go watch that video. Zen, feel free to put up a link. I don't care about sharing links to other channels and other stuff.
When you
Absolutely.
buy a refractometer, check on the what's the right word? Sensitivity. There's a lot of them out there. They aren't very accurate, and for two reasons. First of all, a seawater one is better than a saltwater one, but the majority of the ones that I ever found were saltwater, not seawater, and they have a
Okay.
different curve, so you get different reactions on it. If you have a saltwater one, you need to use a calibration fluid that's at the same temperature range that you're measuring. If you use a seawater one, you can pretty well use the distilled water or RO water, one end of the scale, and you can check at a high end of the scale, and it'll work out well in between. But salt water refract and seawater are different.
So
So
you're
that
saying
might
get
be
the
why
seawater?
on mine it's so hard, because like I said, I haven't used mine in about a year, but the thing that I had trouble with is that you had to match temperatures of something to something when calibrating. And so that, I think Ray just hit the
So
nail.
I'm curious to hear more about the saltwater versus seawater, because I'll
Okay,
tell you the
saltwater
reason.
refractometer is made for just plain salt water. Seawater has a lot more chemicals in than what just a saltwater mixture is. Salt water is basically sodium chloride and water.
Mhm.
Okay, your salt water has a ton of other chemicals in it, and that changes the refraction of the light so that it'll show different on the scale.
Okay. So
You have to know
you
what you're using so you know
So here's mine.
what to use for calibration. If you have a saltwater one, you calibrate at the range you need to use it at. If you have a seawater one, then you can
so what
calibrate it.
so what you're doing
Oh,
is
mine
correcting.
says
Wait,
seawater.
hang on.
So it is a
So
seawater.
okay, gotcha. So what you're correcting me on, Ray, is me saying use distilled water to calibrate, because it depends on the refractometer, but all of them usually come with, or you can buy the correct formula in a bottle to calibrate, correct?
Yeah, the other thing is that people consider them to be accurate, but if you look at the plus or minus, look at the accuracy range that it's good for and the tolerance that it has, a lot of them aren't any better than using hydrometer. As a matter of fact, I have lab hydrometers from when I worked in the lab back in the 60s, and they are more accurate than most refractometers that you can buy.
So I would believe that 100%, but I would say the hydrometers that I've bought, and I've bought many, and Sean had many, and I could literally test the water, get a reading, test the water again, it would be different. Test the water a third time, different again. It was so frustrating. Whereas with the refractometer, refractometer, however you want to say it. Bottom line is, I could test it 3 times in a row and it would be the same. So even if it was wrong, we talk about with seahorses, the key is stability, keeping it the same.
And it's just a
So if
case with a hydrometer, learning how to use it properly.
oh God, so I must have been. Ray,
That and
you're
I'll
a,
tell
you're
That's
a
right.
man.
I had to
You
fix
ain't,
them.
It's something
no,
that does take a bit of learning.
You ain't gonna mansplain me. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. Go ahead. So you're telling me I was using it wrong?
No, I'm saying that there's a possibility that you're using it wrong, or you
And there
and
is.
Or
but
you
it's a
had
case of
one that had something wrong with it, because I've run into that and had to
nobody
Where
replace.
the
told
thing
you.
won't click? Yeah.
People just didn't explain to you how to properly use a hydrometer, and it depends on the type you're using. With
So
the swing arm one that Holly was using there, they're perfectly fine to use if you keep them clean. You can soak them in vinegar overnight and do that once a week. That's great for keeping the mineral content off the side of the glass and off the swing arm. But if you allow a buildup of anything on that swing arm, then it may
sure.
make it go down. Um,
And I get that, but what if you buy one and the arm's sticking right to begin with?
I had Scott fix one because it has a little disc in the middle of the swing
Yep.
arm. And Scott, one time I got one and it fell out not long after and Scott somehow
Jeez.
managed to get in there and put that little disc back in that swing arm for me and fixed it.
I used to make calibration fluid for
because
some of
they're
my
cheap.
customers,
So I
and
can
I would use my
compare.
lab hydrometers to get this calibration fluid, and then people would bring their swing arms to me, and we would measure it. And back in those days, you could take the swing arm apart. It was just a rectangular box, and you could pull the plastic piece out, pull out
Oh,
the
nice.
swing arm. Well, I would take that that swing arm, and if the hydrometer was reading high, then I would shave off a little bit of the plastic. If it was reading too low, I would shave a little bit off the weight and do it just a little bit at a time until I got it accurate so that they could depend on it. And I would also teach them how to use it properly and how to clean it properly.
So what I'm going to say is to each your own, right? If you have something that's working for you and your tank is running wonderfully, no matter what you're using, keep using it. I'm going to stick with my refractometer, which is now broken, that I have to get a
That's
new one.
partly why too. They're delicate, but yeah, look at all the instructions I got on calibrating. And the thing is, every time I used it, I had to calibrate because it even tells you if the instrument is equipped with automatic temperature compensation, the ambient working temperature of the room must be 68 whenever the instrument is recalibrated.
Sure.
There's all
listen, guys. There's
instructions.
arguments for each and the other. I trust this. Holly trusts her hydrometer. Whatever's working for you works. I've just gotten too many. I've had literally 2 hydrometers that gave me different results. I mean, was it that I needed a ray that could shave off some plastic? Sure, maybe. But to me,
well, my secret is I use multiple ones because if they're all showing the same,
yeah,
I know they're right.
That,
if one's different, I know that's the one.
I ain't got time for all that. And again, guys,
and the calibrating of that thing took me forever. And then I had to do it every single time because the temperature does not stay the same in here.
So it depends on where you live, right? If your temperature changes drastically, because she's absolutely right. The refractometer, however you say it, does depend on temperature for sure. Depends on where you live and temperature. Also depends on just what you like, what works for you. And if your tank is working, don't change it, right? We could have these debates all night about which one's better. They
I
all
don't think
work.
either one's
Right.
better. I think it's just
Right.
what's easier for you. And for me
Yes.
to not have to calibrate anything is a lot easier for me.
And
If you stop
I
and think
just
about it,
I just
refractometers weren't
hang
around.
on, hang on. And I just had so many trouble with hydrometers that I don't trust them now. Have they gotten better? Do they work better now? Probably. Did they work better in the past before they were probably being made in China with whatever? Probably. Like Ray's going to tell
I've
us.
used the same one since I got into saltwater in 2007, the instant
See,
ocean ones.
maybe they were better back then. I just,
I still have the
again,
Oh,
same
no,
ones
I
from
buy them now.
1992.
I still
we,
get them, and they're exactly the same. They make them the same
so
way they did.
I know, and we could argue this all night long, and it doesn't matter, to each your own. I have never had two hydrometers give me the same reading in my same tank, never, right? And I've had the same hydrometer give me multiple readings. Could Ray be right that I'm using them wrong? Maybe. I'm not saying that's not a possibility. Or maybe I didn't. But I mean, I'm talking brand new where I tested a tank. Okay. Retest just to be safe. Totally different number. Wait a minute. Retest again. Maybe I'm using it wrong. Doesn't matter. If it works for you, keep using it. Ray,
The
go ahead.
biggest problem are the microscopic bubbles. People don't get dislodged before they take a reading.
Okay.
Gotta tap it.
And so it's a case of how you take the sample into it. And for my money, the old C-test rectangular ones were the best ones. But then again, as long as you maintain the hydrometer properly, cleaning wise and so on, and as long as your procedure was right, it wouldn't matter if there was 1 or 2 points, full points off on one hydrometer or another. Like Joe Blow down the street, his might be reading 2.4, yours might be reading 2.6. Doesn't matter as long as you're
Close enough.
consistently using that and going by what that is. It's the consistency that counts in there, and repeatability, so that when you change the water, that you're going to have the same thing as what you're taking out.
Well, I just put in the comments team refractometer. Screw all of you. No, I'm just kidding. Whatever's working for you, go for it, right? I like it. Maybe it makes me feel fancy. Maybe it's just worked for me. Maybe I'm doing the hydrometer wrong. Whatever.
Look at how many successful reef tanks there were before refractometers became available to the hobby.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to leave it with that. If you love your hydrometer, use it. Use it. What else did we have, you guys? Aside from Zen Ginger, we're just glad you're here. And Bonnie, did I answer everything? I know my comments come in later, so I just want to make sure we didn't miss anything. I think we already covered this. I'm saying taking all that water out of the tank, wouldn't that shock them to be in such a low water? So that's a good question, though. When we talk about fry or we talk about dwarf seahorses, and we'll have Aquaballs on as a guest, and then we'll see what he's doing. But Ray, when you talk about doing 95% water changes, and people have asked me this too, you know, like if there's a problem in the tank and you have to do a massive water change and your seahorses are literally laying flat on the ground, is
That's
that
the way
not
mine are
stressing?
all the time.
Well, isn't
When I
that
do a major
stressing
water
you out?
change, they are lying down, and
Okay.
you know, as long as their heads are still staying underwater, that's all that counts.
But it doesn't stress them?
Well, I've done it for an awful lot of years.
They probably get used to it, just like mine go to their corner every week when I clean their tank. They know what's going to happen. So, you know, they go. Sometimes I have to give them a little nudge and tell them, yeah, okay, it's time. And okay, they go hang out in their spot where they're safe while I clean. But yeah, they get used to stuff, and I don't see it as being a problem. Now, when I did my fry tanks, the way I did it was I had a whole new identical tank set up for them, and I scooped them out and put them in it. And then I cleaned the old, like I switched back and forth from one to another, but I didn't have tons of fry, remember? So there might be like 20 of them. So
Right.
I just scoop them up in a little cup, whatever, and take them over here, no big deal. But if I was to do a huge water change in the big Seahorse's tank, I would leave them in there. And like Ray said, just let them, adjust to the water volume, because it's not going to be that low for long. I've already got the water made and ready to go back in. If I was doing a lot of scrubbing because something was yucky or whatever, or there was a reason I had to get rid of their water because there was something bad, then I would take them out and put them in a bucket meanwhile, and have
Mhm.
them wait while I cleaned. But it's funny because I do that with my other fish all the time. Like right now, I was telling you I have tadpoles and I give them just about 100% water change every day. So they
Yep.
get down to, they're like flopping around in the bottom of the tank before I put the new water in. But it's only for like a minute, you
Right.
know.
So
So
it's about being prepared and not leaving them that way for very long. And I would say too that like literally I take videos and pictures all the time, guys. I'm just not good at sharing anymore because whatever, life's chaotic. But I have my male, and this is one of the reasons that I still think he's trying to get pregnant or thinks he's pregnant or is pregnant, whatever it might be. But because he likes to hitch on my lock line and he has his head all the way to the point where his eyes are out of the water. And I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Are you okay? What's wrong? And he's like, leave me the heck alone, mom. Right. And he wants to be there. He likes his head out of the water. I don't know why.
I've
You'd
had
think it
them,
would
yeah,
dry him
do that
out.
and squirt water out of the top of their head. Yeah.
But I mean, his snout's underwater, his gills are underwater, but his eyes and his crown
Yeah, he
are
wants
out of
to
the
see.
water.
That's
Yeah.
not uncommon though.
I mean,
Yeah,
but
no,
why?
they do that. Well, they want to see, just like I'm sure, just like
They're
anything
like
else,
peeking
they
out of
want,
the corner. Yeah,
I never
you
worried
know,
about it. I figured if they didn't want to do it, they wouldn't do it.
that's
right? It
true.
could
That's
change.
true.
I had a group, mine don't do it anymore, but they used to love when I did the water changes, they'd go up and hang on to the lock line, like you were saying, on the return nozzle. So when I did their water change, they'd eventually be hanging in the air like a possum.
Right. Right.
And they didn't care. The water would get right about to the point where they were just their heads barely underwater, and the rest of them were out of the water, and they didn't care. Just the water came back, I put it back in.
Yeah.
An interesting fact about seahorses is they can actually stay out of water longer than most fish because they're able to hold water in their gills. And
Okay.
that's what makes it easier when you're doing like medications and things like outside of the tank.
All right. I'm
It's
listening. Go ahead.
it's a pretty cool fact. No, that's it. That's just a fact about seahorses.
So they can
I
hold
remember
water in their
they
gills.
hold water in their gills. I've had when I was raising fry, I actually found some on the floor that got spilled,
Right.
and they were there
It
for a
happens,
while. I'd
folks.
say probably 20 minutes. I picked them up and put them in the water, and they were fine.
So
And
I can attest to
doesn't mean
that.
leave them out of the water. I'm not saying that, but I'm
Right.
saying they have a better chance than most
Right.
fish if they
This
are
doesn't
not.
mean pull your seahorse out of the water for pictures. Please don't do that. No, no, don't do that. But I can attest to what Holly's saying because in my system, in my 65 gallon that I
Mhm,
had, I mean, I still have it, but years ago was where the breeding machine happened, right?
mhm.
I would miss births and I would come home, and this system, in case you guys don't remember, it literally has like a vacuum type hose that goes down to an algae scrubber. And luckily for me, this is a custom built algae scrubber. And so the algae scrubber goes like this, right? But on top of it, where the water comes in, is a plate. And I would have floss on that plate. So anything huge wasn't getting through, just the nutrients to fill, to grow the algae. Anyhow, I would miss a birth and I would come home and there would be fry just
It's stuck
scattered,
in
stuck,
Yeah.
because you think about it, not only are they pretty much out of the water, but
Mhm.
they've got water splashing down on them, not hard, but I
Yeah.
mean, pushing
They're
them
stuck
into
to
the
the
floss.
stuff. Yeah.
And I remember calling Dan one day and just bawling my eyes out. Oh my God, I lost this whole batch. They're all, and he was like, "Are they moving?" Yeah, they're moving. He said, get a bucket of salt water.
Put
Hopefully you
water
have
in
water
immerse 'em.
made. Hopefully you have water made already.
Yeah.
Get your
Go
bucket
immerse
of
'em.
water, put that floss in the water and leave it.
Yeah.
And they will get themselves free and they will swim
Yeah.
out and they will be fine. And I had gone to work that day, so I couldn't even tell you how many hours
Mhm.
they were on that
They
floss.
were stuck there.
So I think we're talking about all these different things, guys. It's Wine Wednesday. We talk about everything.
Yeah.
But I would say, I think the key takeaway is seahorses are hardier than you
They
think.
are hardy. They are
I
very
mean,
hard.
we talk
They
about them
can take a
being,
lot.
Holly likes to talk about them taking a lot. I just want to make the point that they're way, like, we want to do the right things for them because they are susceptible to disease. We need to keep the water clean. We need to set up properly for them. But anybody who's afraid to keep seahorses because they're so delicate that they might, they're not. They're
They're
very hardy. They're
they're
very,
just sensitive to high organics. That's
yes.
the thing that I've gathered from having them. That's their main thing that gets them.
Keep the
Most
tank
other
clean.
stuff they seem to bounce back and do fine, but they can't handle high organics.
Okay. So, Ray, you got something to say about that?
No, I wanted to get going because I've got a dog that went outside in the rain a little bit after we started,
Oh,
and she's still
oh,
out there. A
Uh-oh.
while ago when I went out there, and she still wouldn't come in. So I'm gonna have to put a coat on and go out in the rain and
Go get her.
drag her in if I can.
oh. Well, I'm sorry you
Well,
have
see,
to
she
do
came
that.
out of Texas in a breeding cage in a backyard.
I
So
know.
she was out in all the weather all the time. But the
Mhm.
difference is the rain there is a lot warmer than what it is here.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. And the difference is you didn't have to go out and find her. So, I mean, that's a
No,
big difference too. Right.
well,
So,
catching her is another thing too, because she doesn't want to come in.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She's
Around
used
her.
to being out like that, eh? So
Yeah.
I love when he says, "Hey." I just love that. I love Canadians. All right. Anyways, I'm sorry you have to go catch her, Ray. With that, I think we're going to end tonight. Everybody cross their fingers that Ray gets the dog in well and safely. And don't hurt yourself, Ray, please. I will let you guys know. Chris Carey asked that I make sure I let him know personally when Graham Short's coming. When I get the announcement for Aquaball's coming, I will announce it. Stay tuned. And I just thank you guys all for coming. Again, apologize for last week. Zen, I'm sorry we're ending as soon as you come, but you were late. So listen to me, the person that's always late, right? But we're still going to go with it. Thank you guys for coming. We'll be back next week and I'll announce any guests. Anything else, guys, or can we close it?
well, I'm off.
All right. Good luck
Night
with the
all.
dog,
Good
Ray.
night.
Happy Wine Wednesday.